Hey Life Fixers, Esty here, and welcome to another episode of the Life Fix University podcast, where we help you rewire your brain to have the extraordinary marriage. And today, we're speaking about rewiring your brain to have an extraordinary marriage. Yes, this is the first episode of Rewiring Your Brain 4. And in these episodes, we're going to be going through the tips that our guests gave in the previous episode and understanding how our brain is wired, who's going to have an easy time for this, and someone that has a hard time with this, how they can go and make it easier for them. So since this is our first Rewire Your Brain 4 episode, I am going to first give you an overview of what does it mean rewiring your brain. Are you ready? Let's do this. When we are thinking, there are many parts to what we're actually doing. These parts are called cognitive functions, okay? There are 28 cognitive functions, 28 things, 20 parts that help us think efficiently and effectively, which afterwards has an effect on everything else that we're doing in our lives. So if one of your cognitive functions are weak, it's going to affect everything else that you're going to do. I'll give you an example. In the previous episode, Dr. Kelly and Dr. April were talking about how many people plan for their wedding, but they don't plan for their marriage. Now, that comes from a cognitive deficiency. That comes from when one of those cognitive functions are weak, which is all about planning. If someone has a hard time planning, they're going to have a really hard time with this. So how can you go and make it better? We're going to go and get into that in those upcoming episodes. Or another one they gave is many times people think it's not okay to take time out. They need to do everything now. They're extremely impulsive. That again comes from another cognitive deficiency of being able to say, just a moment, let me think. So there are 28 of these cognitive functions. I'm not going to go and overwhelm you now with all of them, but I am going to tell you that there are 3 phases of thinking. We have input, how we take in our information, elaboration, how we think about our information, and output, how we tell the world what we know. In each one of these phases, we have some cognitive functions. In the input phase, we have 8 cognitive functions. In the elaboration phase, where we're actually doing the thinking, we have 12 cognitive functions. And in the output phase, we have another 8. And in these Rewiring Your Brain 4 episodes, we are going to be going through these 28 cognitive functions together with the tips that our guests gave us. And I'm going to give you an additional strategy to actually rewire your brain so that way you will be able to go and implement those type of things. So I'll give you an example now. It's okay to take time out comes from just a moment, let me think. That is a cognitive function actually in the output phase. If you have a really hard time with this, if you find yourself really impulsive, not being able to take the moment to just stop and think, you'll want to practice stopping and thinking at easier times when things aren't pressured, when things aren't rushed. And literally you could even play a game together with your partner where one of you asks the questions. You could do any of those card or online games where you ask a question. And instead of spitting out an answer, here you're doing the opposite. You have to stop and think and then give an answer. Does that make sense? Okay, these are going to be fun. We are going to get deep. We're really going to change the way your brain is wired. We're going to be going through new dendrites and new neuron connection. It's going to be amazing. If you have any questions, you could head over to lifefixuniversity.com and send me all of them there. We are also starting a new program in just a couple of weeks on going really deep on rewiring your brain called Your Brain Rewired. That too, you can find out more information at lifefixuniversity.com/your brain rewired. That's it for this episode of the Life Fix University podcast, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.
That's all for this episode of the Life Fix University podcast, but I have a huge favor to ask of you that will not only support the show, but will also help the people you love most. We are striving for 1 million downloads by the end of 2025, and we can't do this without your help. If you love this episode, please share it with 2 of your family and friends so they too can rewire their brains to have an extraordinary marriage. It was awesome spending time with you, and I'll see you on the next episode.